How's it going, everybody? So this past weekend, the fifth and final Rambo film, Last Blood, was released in theaters nationwide. I was originally planning on doing just a full review of the fifth film, but then I realized that I had never seen any of the films in the Rambo franchise up to this point. And so to prepare for Last Blood, what I did is, for the past few weeks, I spread out my time watching all 5 of the Rambo films, but I watched them in sequential order up until I watched Last Blood last week. Due to how I watched these in sequential order in such a close period of time, I thought it'd be kind of fun to bundle up all my thoughts on all 5 films into one video, and then rank them all according to how much I like them compared to the others. So with that being said, let's dive into my thoughts on all of the Rambo films, including Last Blood, and I hope you enjoy what I have to share with you today. The worst of the Rambo franchise is also the one that felt less impactful than the rest. It makes sense that the producers would want to continue doing what resulted in box office success with the second movie, but for me, it just doesn't work. When making action movies, one of the worst things you can do is end up with a boring end product in the editing room. Not to mention that when compared to the original, it's perhaps the most guilty of forgetting what the Rambo story was about from the beginning. What drew me to John Rambo was how his Vietnam PTSD affected his decision making. Some of that shines through in this movie, but only on a surface level. It's otherwise a brainless gorefest without a shred of interesting character moments. Despite some decent ideas with the story and fun action-packed moments, Rambo 3 is so generic and uninteresting that it just passed through me. I've said it before and I'll say it again. A movie should be more than the YouTube moments people remember it for. If you have to suffer through a movie in order to get to those very few parts you like, then that isn't a good overall mark of quality, is it? With that, I am giving Rambo 3 a D. And here the road ends. Or maybe it does? I don't know, this feels like a conclusion in name and concept only. Nothing gave me the impression that this was the definitive climax for John Rambo while I was watching it. What I will say is that Stallone, as a writer anyway, is still channeling more human emotion than anything that was ever conjured up in the second and third movies. Last Blood feels like a true extension to the fourth film since it deals with the broken down Rambo who can't see any other means of resolving problems than butchering people. It's a good surface level idea, but the movie fails at fully capitalizing on it for a few key reasons. For one thing, John Rambo is practically the same character here. Anything you could have gleaned about this guy was already established in the previous movie and isn't ever elaborated upon. At this point, his character is simply Sylvester Stallone figuring out creative ways to maim Mexicans, which is an appallingly contradictory shade of what his character used to be. Secondly, tone and editing really hurt the action scenes. They're suitably gritty and are full of wince-worthy gore, but the timing of the shots, nature of the violence itself, and soulless depictions of savagery don't result in anything enjoyable. Rambo is arguably more bloody than this, but at least that was fun to watch. This just felt gross and wrong. Finally, the plot is painfully average and exploitative. I'm not one to really push for PC storytelling, but to have a literal white savior go to a nondescript Mexican town that's stereotypically drenched in crime doesn't really work anymore. If you want to see a rated R mishmash of Taken and Home Alone with Rambo as the main character, be my guest. It ain't good though. With that, I'm giving Rambo Last Blood a D+. I like the idea that the sequel to First Blood would be giving Rambo a shot at redemption. That shot being the opportunity to rescue American POWs is an even better idea. This would give him not only the chance to free his missing brothers from the clutches of evil, torturous men, but to show us more of his unique skill set. Perhaps this also could have been a chance for the writers to explore more of Rambo's psyche, kind of like how the 2 John Wick sequels managed to accomplish. However, in the time between the first and second installments releases, they somehow missed the entire point. What goodwill they had in painting a picture of America's ilk towards veterans was lost in the action movie cliches. It just seemed like studio heads got a hold of the material and decided to exploit Vietnam, a horribly dark period in our country's history, for jingoistic wish fulfillment. The result is more often dumb and distasteful rather than satisfying. I will admit though, I laughed like a hyena when Rambo blew up stuff with the Huey. That and the helicopter chase which followed were hilariously awesome to watch. But in the long run, because of a disappointing storyline, extremely weak villains, and inconsistency with the original movie's message, I couldn't get behind it. Even the film's admirable pro-veteran tone wasn't enough to save it. With that, I'm giving Rambo Last Blood Part 2 a D+. While the previous 2 films were bathed in jingoistic glory that forgot what the original was about, somehow the hyper-violent and borderline sadistic fourth installment regained some humanity. It's ironic how this came about though, for it presents its violence in a way that suggests the futility of American interference in foreign affairs. Death, rape, and destruction happen, regardless of whether or not John Rambo and his mercenaries were there to save the day. Even if the film's riddled with bad dialogue, plot armor, Deus Ex Machina, and some cringeworthy moments consistent with the other sequels, Rambo earns brownie points for its hard-edged filmmaking and cynical outlook. The time for heroes has passed, for the film recognizes what the world has wrought despite the sacrifices of its best men. I didn't think that would be what would somewhat redeem this franchise, but hey, expect the unexpected. Because of this, it manages to strike a fascinating balance between somberness and good old-fashioned entertainment. Also a random side note, both the Rambo and Indiana Jones franchises started in the early 80s, had 2 sequels later in that same decade, and then came back after 20 years with the 4th installment. Yet, the movie with Harrison Ford, a budget about 4 times the size of Rambo, and freaking Steven Spielberg in the director's chair is worse. How does that work? With that, I'm giving Rambo 2008 a respectable C+. Of course the original Rambo film's the best one. What'd you think it was gonna be? If your favorite happens to be one of the later installments, I won't hold that against you whatsoever. However, I'd like to believe that someone couldn't argue that the sequels are more meaningful than this one. Given that I expected this to be a showcase of machismo consistent with the franchise's reputation, I was surprised to learn that First Blood is a somber, sorrowful meditation on the costs of the Vietnam War. There are some funny moments and cool scenes as well, but that wasn't the point of the movie. Instead, the filmmakers decided to do something unexpected and ultimately longer lasting as a result. With perhaps one of Sylvester Stallone's most impressive screenplays and performances, this is a solid movie that I'll happily rewatch over the years. It's the only Rambo movie I bought on Blu-ray for a reason. I know there will be many people who disagree with me on the appeal of this series, but it's telling that First Blood still holds up to this day. While not high art by any means, the commentary it offers on Vietnam, the way America treats its veterans, and the moral complexity of violence is fascinating. The choice to end this well-paced, intense action thriller with a tear-filled outpouring of angst will make this stand the test of time, and I'm ever grateful for that. With that, I am giving First Blood a B. Thanks again for watching, guys. I apologize that I did not look quite like Rambo. My intention was to go out and buy a black tank top from a thrift store, but then when I saw that they didn't have one, I was like, screw it, I'm too cheap to buy one somewhere else. But nonetheless, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and look forward to more reviews coming very soon, one for a movie and one for a video game. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe, it really does help me grow my content here on YouTube. And feel free to hit the bell to receive notifications for every time I post a video as well. Feel free to check out my social media pages on Facebook and Letterboxd to find other content you won't find here on YouTube. And thank you for watching as always, and have a good one.